And welcome to another edition of the Mojobreak Dugout Session. Playoff baseball is in full swing. We are into the division series. Now we're in the bubble. We got the quarantine special for the baseball postseason. 2 series in Southern California, 2 series in Texas. Doug alongside me, Cody with you, and I am stoked for this next week of baseball. 5 games in 5 days potentially, or you got, I guess, 5 games in each series. You got 6 straight days of baseball here potentially. Doug, I'm amped for it. What are you thinking about the postseason so far?
Oh man, it's been fun. It seems like it's moving really fast, which I think is the goal of the season with this pandemic going on. But there's already been some great, exciting storylines, and I look forward to even more storylines with this next series.
Yeah, we're going to preview each series coming up. But before we do that, there is a new release this week from Topps. That would be Triple Threads. A lot of great relics, auto relics in that set. Doug, what should people be looking for when Triple Threads drops this week?
Well, it's one of the most unique sets. It has the most variety. I mean, there's Deca books, which is like multiple players on there. There's bat knobs, sometimes bat plates. There's multiple all-star type relics, and what you're looking at in a case break, which you can get on Mojobreak.com, is each case is going to have 36 hits, so it's plentiful when it comes to the hits. It is a staple baseball product. It's actually one of the original high-end baseball products. Triple Threads has been out for almost 15 years now, and it was at when it came out at $180 a box back in the day. It was the only kind of box in its category at that price point. Now it's not necessarily known as the high end when you have Sterling and you have Dynasty and you have Transcendent and stuff like that, but it still is the same kind of format with awesome relic autos, legends, vets, and of course the new rookie class, as you can see here with Luis Robert and Bo Bichette.
Yeah, a lot of things to look out for. Bat knobs, that's an awesome relic to find. I would love to get a bat knob, maybe one of those new ones. Have you seen, this is a little off topic, but the players with like the axe handle bats now, that the knob looks like a little more narrow and different. I didn't notice it until this postseason. Like maybe some baseball nuts can also chime in here in comments or wherever you're listening. This is the first time I've ever seen them. Have you been seeing these for a few years, Doug?
I haven't seen them in cards yet, but I've heard of a few players using them, and that would be interesting to see the first card that has one of those cool. Axe handles on more of a triangular, I think, right, as opposed to a round. So that'd be pretty neat to see. And I'm not sure exactly if it's a bat plate. They usually have bat plates or bat knobs. We'll have to look at the checklist, but you're looking at some amazing, unique memorabilia, like book cards that are like 3 or 4 pieces that fold out to make a full all-star patch, So it's just a phenomenal release with some really big chase cards.
Well, if you're watching us, one of the 2 guys you see on the picture there of Triple Threads, an example of their cards that you'll be seeing later this week, Luis Robert. Certainly his value didn't need much help the way things are going for him, but that home run he hit in the pivotal Game 3 of the American League Wildcard Series against the Oakland A's was just something to behold. So obviously the value goes up, despite the fact I'm sure that some White Sox fans disappointed he doesn't make it to the next round. As we take a look at the postseason bracket as it stands right now, and lo and behold, it's all division rivals in the second round. Sorry, American League and National League Central. You're done for the season. The East and the West are still in this thing. I love the matchups here. I don't know if you could tell who I'm pulling for in the second round. I'm pulling for America's team here in the second round. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's talk about the Wild Card Series, which this was the first time we'd ever seen playoff baseball like this. 3 games, best of 3, and just as they were calling it, the fall frenzy, whatever you want to call it, a sort of March Madness sort of feel in the middle of October. For the most part, I think that this was an interesting experiment that in terms of the quality of baseball, I was really enjoying it. I thought that Cardinals-Padres series was highly entertaining. There were some fantastic moments. The A's and White Sox series I thought was a great 3-game set, but you also kind of had some duds. Raise your hand if you can tell me anything about the Tampa Bay-Toronto series. Unfortunately, not many people were watching. That's the other negative side of this is, and maybe it's because there's not only football right now, but there's also the NBA Finals happening right now. There is we're in a unique position where we'll probably never see it again, where there are just so many high-profile sporting events all happening at once. And unfortunately, baseball suffered. I think that aforementioned Tampa Bay-Toronto series, one of those games got under 1 million viewers.
Wow.
That is not good for playoff baseball. But getting away from that a little bit, Doug, what did you think about this wild card round? Is this something that you think is going to be the norm from now on? As the one-game wild card, is that a thing of the past?
Well, the A's would have fell victim to what happened to them every other year, where they lost the first game. But I kind of like the 3-game format. But I think the downside to it was there was just too much going on. Granted, in another type of year, we wouldn't be competing against other sports. But I feel like baseball would be challenged to kind of put them all in where they're getting the most eyeballs. So that is the biggest challenge. But I kind of like it. Should the Marlins have been in there, and should the Marlins be moving on? Should the Astros be moving on? I don't know. But it's definitely something different, and, this year's different, so it kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's watering down the product, because there was exciting baseball, and I think the Marlins thing is a great story. And you know what? They played over 500 ball and got to the baseball's version of the dance here, so good for them. But yeah, just in general, I think that there is a lot to like about what happened. Obviously, there was some great drama, like that Game 2 against Cleveland and New York was just one for the record books, an absolutely remarkable game. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a feeling of maybe there is such thing as too much of a good thing here when it comes to baseball. I think, and I've said this before on the podcast, cut it down. Don't make it a 16-team tournament. Do something like 12 teams where you've got some sort of buys involved, stuff like that. And you've got 8 teams from each league, or 4 teams from each league, 8 teams altogether in a wild card round. A little easier to digest when you've got just 4 series to work with in that first 3 games of the postseason, rather than 8 games where you've got so many games overlapping. I mean,
what if we just simply change that 1-game wild card to a 3-game?
That's it.
Keep it the way that it's been, but make it a 3-game.
It could be that easy.
Where you're the guy, your main pitcher struggles, but you're the better team, and you win. You've seen it with the A's. I mean, they won the next 2 games. So
yeah, I think the 3-game set, however you want to do that, whether it be take the wild card round that you've got right now and just make it a 3-game series, add a few more wild card teams, which I think is still what they want to do. I don't think it's going to be 16, especially when you're walking out of this round and the team that's the most hated team in baseball makes it in. They're under 500. You've got the Chicago Cubs, one of the marquee teams in Major League Baseball, gone after 2 games. I think Major League Baseball is going to over the offseason really reconsider what do we want to do with this postseason format, because you don't want to see potentially the biggest teams gone in the first round after 2 games. Like, we're not even going to be thinking about them.
Right.
Going
absolutely.
ahead. But let's talk about the here and the now, the teams that are still in the postseason. We're going to break it down series by series, just like we did last week, give you some players to watch, especially if you're a collector, guys who maybe their value could be on the rise if you've got them tucked away somewhere waiting for that big moment. Let's start in the American League, and we're going to be starting in San Diego, where the Yankees are playing the Rays. Everything about that sounded very strange.
It's weird.
Yes, we are starting quarantine baseball, bubble baseball right now. And this, I think, also is going to be a huge factor for all of these series. These teams playing in ballparks that they're not used to playing in some cases, haven't played in them all year long or in many years. When's the last time the Yankees or the Rays played an interleague series in San Diego? I could not tell you off the top of my head. So, and when you consider the Yankees usually playing in October in New York when it's cold and it's that crisp autumn air in New York, Tampa's playing under a dome, and now they're going to be playing in 80-degree San Diego for 6 o'clock starts Pacific time, or a 5 o'clock starts. It's going to be a completely different environment. Right off the bat, who do you like in this series, Doug?
I've been Yankees. I think power over pitching on this one. I know I a couple of my picks last week were wrong, but I'm still going with the Yankees. And the Rays have obviously Tyler Glass now had a great series or a great start in that series, and they've been doing well with their pitching. I still think the Yankees, and I think there's still some Aaron Judge cards out there that are undervalued when it comes to collecting.
Yeah, he's the guy to me. If there's any key player to watch for the Yankees, it's Aaron Judge. Judge. In that AL wildcard series, remember that first game against Shane Bieber where I'll say right now, I picked the Cleveland Indians to go all the way to the World Series, and then, didn't work out very well, where Shane Bieber just looked like a completely different pitcher on the mound, and it was because, in part, Aaron Judge had that huge home run in that start of that series, and then went hitless the rest of the series. So for Judge, it's starting to become – what was the year he had the over 50 home runs? Was it 2017?
2017,
right?
Yep.
That's starting to feel
his
like
rookie campaign, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, that feels like a long time ago now with everything that has transpired in his career, the injuries, everything. He has got to step it up here in this series against a division rival. And in his career against Tampa Bay, 12 career home runs against the Rays. That is the fewest home runs against any AL East opponent in Aaron Judge's career. So the Rays kind of have his number. He's going to need to step it up. I think Charlie Morton for Tampa Bay is a huge key. That third starter, the Rays pitching is really good. The Rays are 8-2 against the Yankees this season. And yet I'm with you, Doug. I think I'm picking the Yankees. They have the momentum right now, and I think they're starting to believe that they're the best team in baseball like everybody thought they were.
Yeah, and back to the whole situation of playing in another ballpark, too, is it is kind of unfair to the Rays, right, who have the better record, to not have their home field. But I get it when it comes in terms of the bubble, and this is what you got to do. But I guess it is a good thing that it's a completely neutral site where none of the teams have really played. So that's going to be interesting to watch, is seeing how some of the outfielders play, right? Not knowing exactly where the foul lines are. I mean, I'm sure they will. They're professionals, but you may see some kind of idiosyncrasies there. But I think the Yankees do it, and I think they're more poised for the bigger moment than the Rays are. So I think the Yankees win.
Yeah, and I know maybe the Rays are probably like, good, this is exactly what we want. We're the best team in the American League, and everybody is counting us out. So maybe it's playing into their hands. But yeah, right now, the Yankees look like a confident group right now. All right, let's move on to the second series, which, this is the one where both of these series, by the way, in the American League, a lot of bad blood with both of these sides. You had the Yankees and the Rays had a huge brawl early in the season. I think their manager, Kevin Cash, even said, we've got some guys in that bullpen who could throw 98 miles per hour, basically calling them out, saying, we're not afraid to throw at you, being you.
Right.
And obviously we know what happened with the Astros and the A's and their history, and especially what happened this season. Ramon Laureano, and I think it was the hitting coach for the Astros, Alex Centrone, getting
Hold me back, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody wanted a piece of the Astros this year, so man, it's so fitting in a way that it is going to be the A's versus the Astros here. The A's dominated Houston this year, 7-3 against them. They really turned the tide. To me, it's another moment where, we said in that first episode since we've been covering the postseason here, that Houston kind of felt dead on arrival, and then they go ahead and sweep the Minnesota Twins, who still have not won a baseball game in the new millennium. It feels like I think that's 100% true. Yeah, they've not won a baseball game since the early '90s in the playoffs. So, who do you like in this series, Doug?
I can't like the Astros. So, no matter if I had some real bad blood against the A's, I know the Battle of the Bay, I'm a Giants fan, and I like to make fun of my fellow A's friends. But I'm A's all the way on this one. Carlos Correa running his mouth. Come on. You were the 8th seed, basically, and in any other year, you wouldn't be in here, and then where are the haters now? Well, let's win some more series before you can open your mouth. You basically won 2 games against the Twins. You backed into the playoffs. Your whole team is hitting way worse than they did last year. Now you're not cheating, so it's just I don't really, unless you're a diehard Houston fan, I can't think that there's a lot of people going for the Astros.
No, if you are anything other than a Houston fan, why are you rooting for the Houston Astros?
Right.
I'm just gonna be honest right now. Unless you've got a lot of money on them to win this thing, other than that, Yeah, there is no reason to be.
It's
rooting
just
for
the whole
squad.
thing is funny because they don't have the fans berating them because there's no fans allowed. I mean, it's like they just got off scot-free. It's like somebody cheated, and you're just like, they didn't receive any punishment. I mean, I know they got some financial punishment and some draft punishment and stuff like that, but like, it's just like, here they are, they're back in the playoffs, and there's nobody to talk crap about them, which everybody had their signs ready, and no fans because of COVID.
I think, though, you are going to see the LA fans. I mean, they're playing at Dodger Stadium, the site of all of this, really, the 2017 World Series, where they won the cheating World Series. Obviously, you've got the A's, who also are like, if the Dodgers are the top team that's got a grudge against them, the A's are a very close second.
Yes.
They both have a big grudge against them. So I bet you those fans, you may see an A's-Dodger fan collaboration where they decide, let's pay for some planes to fly over all through our batting practice. Have those messages. Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that this week in Los Angeles. Just crazy how it all worked out that they're in Dodger Stadium. I like Oakland here. You know what? Anything can happen in a 3-game series. That's the one thing we all know from baseball. The worst team can beat the best team in a 3-game series in the regular season. So it's not that crazy that Houston beats a team in Minnesota, too, that has no confidence in the playoffs.
Right.
Whereas Oakland, I feel like there's a lot of bad juju that they were able to get out of the way in that first round with the benefit of the 3 games. They've won a playoff series for the first time since 2006. And they also feel like there's unfinished business here, and just they're a better team. They have a better pitching staff. I think that playing in Dodger Stadium and playing during the day at Dodger Stadium is going to benefit a better pitching team. The A's are the better pitching team. Chris Bassett, Jesus Luzardo, and A's really, really good bullpen. I think if the Astros have any chance, it's going to be they need Zach Greinke to be an ace, and he's just not a very good postseason pitcher. So, to me, this is an A's. I'm going to say A's in 4 with this one.
Wow, nice. Yeah. I'm thinking we're around the same or a sweep. Honestly, I think the A's got the monkey off their back for, like you said, since 2006. How many single game eliminations have they been a part of? And I think it's like they can, breathe some fresh air, and they're in the next series. They got a little more breathing room, and I think that relaxation is going to propel them through this series.
Yeah, they can keep pitching, and the bats started to wake up in that last series too. Chris Davis and Marcus Semien, who really were not doing much in the regular season. That's going to be really important going ahead. Let's move on to the National League. They are going to be playing in Texas. And speaking of the Astros we just mentioned, the home of the Astros is going to be hosting one of the most unlikely postseason series, I think, that we see here on the docket. That would be the Braves versus the Miami Marlins. All the Marlins do in the playoffs is win. 7-0. Best winning percentage in playoff history. I mean, 7 series, so, who cares, whoop-de-doo, I guess, in the long term. But, hey, undefeated is undefeated, man. So the Marlins keep doing it. They actually played the Braves very tough this year. They were 6-4 against, or they were 4-6, I should say, against the Braves this year. So the Braves had the upper hand, but that's a closer record, I think, than some might remember, although one of those losses for the Marlins includes that one where they gave up 29 runs to the Braves. So that counts as like 2 or 3 losses. This Marlins team just keeps shocking everybody. The COVID stuff where it just was like they're done. There's no way. And then here they are. They beat the Cubs in a dominant fashion too. It's not even like it was very close. No. They really dominated the Cubs. Do they have enough here to upset the Braves and shock the world once again?
They are my underdog here. I think I am going the Marlins. I think they're playing with they're playing on house money, and Donnie Baseball's got his crew a little amped up. I mean, they're using that bottom feeder sign out there on the field that they, a la kind of reminds me of the Misfit Giants. And then maybe if the Braves, they got Brooks Conrad out there at second base again somehow, you never know. The Braves coming in there are the favorites. It just comes, they just put him in there at second base. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm sure Braves fans want to watch that from their memory, but the Braves are another one of those teams that, yes, they did have some success with Bobby Cox, but how long did it take them to finally have that success? They had more failures than they had success in the big moment. And, I just think that, like the Marlins, no one expected them to be here. They have no pressure. Yeah. And the Braves have a lot of pressure. There's a lot of guys that, Swanson's going to feel that pressure as being a first overall pick, and all the other guys, Freddie Freeman being the franchise leader. So I think there's a lot more pressure on the Braves side than there is the Marlins side.
Absolutely. Oh, there's zero pressure on the Marlins side. That is the biggest benefit they have, is that at this point everything is gravy. They were not expected to be here in the first place. We're not expected to beat the Cubs, and they're not going to be expected to beat the Braves here. The Braves are the better team here. They have the All-Stars. They've got all of this great homegrown talent that it's no longer like, oh yeah, the Braves are back. It's like the Braves have been here now for a few years. It's past the point of let's get the playoff, the growing pains out of the way. They are expected to be one of the premier teams in the National League. I do think they end up winning this series. This looks like a different Braves squad. Although, there was a point in that Red series, that first game, where it just kept going on and on and on, where you thought, here we go again with the Braves. And another note, when you're about to end when the Braves Reds game ended, that first one, I think 2 or 3 other playoff games were about to finish that had started an hour, 2 hours after that one had. So again, scheduling concerns. If you're going to keep this going, maybe not the best right there.
Right.
But I think that the thing that's going to hold the Braves back is if the starting pitching cannot perform here. It's a very young starting staff. A couple of first-rounders, Ian Anderson and Kyle Wright, are going to be the second and third starters. Max Fried, we know, had a great year. He's going to be a Cy Young, probably top 5 finisher. But it's going to be those 2 young starters. Ian Anderson looked great in Game 2. Kyle Wright has been really shaky this year. I'll also throw this out as a key, why I think the Braves have this one. Playing at Minute Maid Park with a lineup so chock full of powerful right-handed hitters.
Yeah.
Acuna, Duvall, Ozuna, the list goes on. They are going to feast on the Crawford boxes. I think that's going to play a huge, huge factor.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree, and this is Acuna's moment. This is Acuna's moment to be considered to be right up there with, I guess, maybe Tatis, which we're going to get into, but kind of being one of the faces of baseball, cementing his legacy here.
Yeah, I think that the slow start, hurt Acuna and the fast start of Tatis. It kind of feels like all the attention that Acuna had gone after the incredibly hot start of Tatis. Tatis became the new golden child of baseball. So I think, you're right. There is a little bit of a like, hey, don't forget about me. I'm still one of the best in baseball. I was still your number 1 pick in fantasy baseball, not Trout this year. So, Acuna may be a little bit to prove here. But Marlins are undefeated in the playoffs, so why am I even picking the Braves? It might be foolish. It'll look kind of foolish.
And something to keep in mind is on the Braves side of things, is Dansby Swanson in that 2015 Chrome draft class that we talk about all the time. He is pictured on the Diamondbacks, but I think his cards are a little bit undervalued at this moment, and Acuna's tops update cards are going up, but I think there is some room for growth there. So those are those 2 cards, I think, right there that kind of stand out. The Marlins, I'm sure you could pick some names and, maybe do something on the super cheap, right? But I don't know if they beat the Braves, if it's enough to really make an investment payoff with the Marlins. Kind of similar to like when the Giants did in 2010. There really wasn't a lot of cards that had went up because of that. Buster Posey maybe a little bit, but I think the side where you want to see some cards go up is if the Braves do it.
Absolutely. For the collector, I think they want to see the Braves go on, because for the Marlins, it's like, I don't know, Brian Anderson or Sixto Sanchez.
Exactly.
It's not a huge pool of guys.
Maybe Brian Anderson, because I think he was runner-up or pretty close to being runner-up or Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
So, but still kind of undervalued there. But, I don't really – beyond Yelich that took years to mature, and Stanton that kind of came out hot but really hasn't been – it's like one of those kind of wastelands for prospects. It just doesn't seem like Marlins prospects really kind of take off.
And to really finish that off, Marcell Ozuna, the former Marlin, going against his former team, the home run leader in the National League this year. It should be interesting, maybe a bit of a revenge game for him. And let's focus on the final series, the last National League series. To me, the most intriguing, I think, of all of these, other than A's Astros, which is intriguing for so many other reasons, even just in and around baseball, just from a narrative standpoint. I think that might be the most interesting.
Yep.
But in terms of, like, if you're a baseball fan and you want to peek into the future of baseball and what this game's going to look like for the next 5 to 10 years, Padres and Dodgers, to me, is that most intriguing series. Obviously, the Dodgers had a phenomenal year. I know it was a short year, but if you were to extrapolate that start they had to a 162-game season, you are looking at historically one of the best teams in Major League history. And they played like it, too. The pitching was great. Walker Buehler is a guy that hasn't even turned it all the way on, and that's a guy I think is a future Cy Young Award winner. Clayton Kershaw, no one seems to be even talking about it.
They forgot about him.
That huge start he had in Game 2 of the last series against the Brewers, one of the best postseason starts of his career. Without getting too much into it, there was some other big news that day that might have clouded the Kershaw start. So I thought, of course, that's of course when Kershaw gets the playoff jitters out of him is when no one's really paying attention.
Right.
But
it's not the World Series
no,
yet, so.
There's also that. It's not the World Series. I've also always been in the camp of I think that the playoff Kershaw thing is a little overblown, especially recently. Early in his career, I get it. I think there were a lot of moments where Kershaw did not step it up in the postseason. I think recently that has changed. I think he's a better pitcher in the playoffs than people give him credit for. And the one time he had that blow up was when he was brought into a game he probably never should have been brought into. I put the blame more on Dave Roberts for that blow up against the Nationals last year. But I digress. The other team, of course, the San Diego Padres, which, for my money, the most exciting team in all of baseball when they're clicking. We all know about Fernando Tatis, but Manny Machado might be the MVP of the National League. Trent Grisham is an exciting young rookie. Will Myers has figured it out, the former super prospect. The only problem with them, a lot of pitching injuries right now. Doesn't sound like they're not going to have Mike Clevenger or Dinelson Lamet. Really, they're number 1 and number 2 starters, so they're going to have to rely on guys like Zach Davies and Chris Paddock if they want to get past the best team in baseball. Unfortunately, I don't see that happen, but I do see this thing stretching out to 5 games.
Yeah, and I think I always feel like in all sports, you kind of got to take your lumps before you can kind of learn from those lumps. The Dodgers have taken a lot of lumps, let's face that. But the Padres, kind of their first dance here in a while, and I think they're going to get a little lesson, and I think the Dodgers are going to move on. As much as it pains me to say that, I think the Dodgers are moving on. Yeah,
it just feels like their year. The Padres did play them tough, but the Dodgers were 6-4 against the Padres this year. I think for both sides, for me, for the Dodgers, the guy that's a key is Cody Bellinger. He is starting to heat it up in his last 12 games. He had a 1.095 OPS. Looked like the Cody Bellinger of old. Can he carry that into a deep postseason?
Plus, just based on name alone, right?
Yeah, so. Exactly. I'm always, well, you know, there's part of me that wants to root for him, and then the other part of me that realizes he's a Dodger, and that just goes against my very nature. Cody Bellinger, a guy that I think he was the MVP of baseball. Like just a year ago. He's 25. Yeah. There's so much potential for him. That's a guy, too, that I think we've talked about his cards before. That's a guy I feel like is way undervalued. Again, a guy who, before he turned 25, had an MVP and is on a Los Angeles team. He's on the Dodgers with other fantastic players. I think that's a guy that...
Yeah, his cards have been kind of a roller coaster ride because... He was a rookie in 2017 along with Judge, and obviously Judge was hitting a lot of home runs. I mean, he had a lot of home runs that year too,
he did.
You know, and now, you know, as a Dodger, your new love is probably Mookie Betts, you know, you get that big contract, and you know, it's like it's kind of feels like it's obviously it's Kershaw's team, but it feels like Bellinger's team too, but then you got Mookie Betts. I think he just keeps kind of getting overshadowed in a sense.
And Corey Seager had a nice rebound this year.
Corey Seager, and who always kills the Giants. And you're right. Bellinger, it could be his time to shine here. And man, that lineup is scary.
It's really, really scary. I mean, they just are such a complete team. That's why I think this has got to be, you know what, I said 5 games, and I'm only giving them 5 because there's the familiarity. But, man, this also has the potential, I think, to be a 3-game Dodger sweep. Just the way you've got such a good lineup, versus a rotation that's got so many issues right now. Love San Diego. Love the uniforms are super clean. I love them. But yeah, I think this is the Dodgers, and it's their time.
I think that first game is going to be pivotal. I think if the Padres win it, then I think it stretches all the way. But I think if the Dodgers win it, I think it's a sweep.
Yeah.
I think it's just that momentum is just going to be crushing to the Padres.
Absolutely. And, it's also an interesting factor before we move on. I looked this up because we don't really know much about the ballpark they're going to be playing at. That will be the new Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas, the home of the Texas Rangers.
It's going to be the first game there, besides maybe some preseason?
This will be, they played the whole regular season there, the Rangers did.
Oh, that's right, duh, yeah.
But they're going to be hosting the postseason here in their very first year. Apparently, if we in the World Series, they are talking about having fans, maybe up to 7,000 fans in attendance. But this is really nationally our first look at this ballpark. And it was only a 30-game sample size, so not very much, but the worst home run hitting park in all of baseball. And they've got Joey Gallo on that team. So that's not like they don't have any home run hitters in Texas. Like, they've got literally one of the premier power hitters in the league on that team, and it was the worst home run hitting ballpark in all of baseball. So that might play a huge factor, and I'd say if that's the case, advantage Dodgers because of the pitching.
Jeez, can you imagine, on a side note here, let's just say it's Yankees-Dodgers, right, which is what baseball would want, which is the lore of baseball. Can you imagine if they only sell 7,000 tickets, what a ticket price will be? Because then you're only having creme de la creme of who's who coming. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying like a nosebleed. I don't even know if they're going to do nosebleed seats, but I mean, you're probably talking about a $10,000 ticket, probably minimum, right? Because it's you've taken the supply and demand and you've cut it to a quarter. Where I remember, I think that when the Giants were playing, I think the tickets were $500, $600, $700 for nosebleeds. And that was if you were lucky, if you waited to the last minute. So now you're talking about selling a fourth of those tickets. Yankees, Dodgers, people can't really go anywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like, wow, what could the price be? I mean, StubHub's probably foaming at the mouth, Ticketmaster. Oh my God. I can only imagine the fees on a ticket transfer like that, but that's crazy.
And somehow Marlins man will be sitting right behind home plate.
And then who gets the tickets, right? So is it like Yankee season, or I mean, is it Rangers season ticket holder?
Right.
Is it?
That's where it gets weird.
Is it Yankee season ticket? Like whoever team gets there. I mean, I know with football, when the Niners, I'm a season ticket holder for the Niners, and when they had the Super Bowl 50 here, I think we had a 5% chance in the raffle because of being season ticket holders.
Right.
And then I think the two teams have 5% too. And then I think the rest of the NFL gets like 1%, whatever. So they divvy out the percentages. But this is COVID, so I don't know what the heck's going on. So.
Yeah, it's all weird. But, we are going to get a lot of time to look at and figure out this new ballpark, which less of the Ebbets Field aesthetic, more of your local Costco is what it looks like, which, not my favorite look, to be quite honest. Let's wrap things up. We're talking about this Dodger-Padres series, and really the guy who was the most exciting player in the playoffs so far. He's really been the playoff MVP right now, on top of he might be the NL MVP, competing with his own teammate Manny Machado, but it's Fernando Tatis. We've been talking about him all year. He's the most talked about player, I think, among collectors, among fans. He is just the guy this year. He is the face of 2020 baseball. And he had a phenomenal performance, that comeback against the Cardinals. Such a great moment where he gets the home run. He gets 2 home runs. That bat flip was very Joey Bats, very Jose Bautista.
He's got swag.
It felt like that moment. And I don't know if you saw, did you see clips of after they won the series, just the fans outside of Petco Park? They have totally caught the imagination of San Diego, which, frankly, being Bay Area baseball fans and seeing the Padres a lot, San Diego has always kind of had a reputation as a fan base to be a little more aloof, a little more kind of relaxed. So I thought it was great to see, these crowds that are super pumped to see the Padres doing well. And it just kind of tells you the effect that Fernando Tatis is having right now. But you can see if you're watching us, I've got Tatis versus Mike Trout. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me just give you these numbers. Fernando Tatis threw his first 143 major league games, batting .301, a .374 on base percentage, .582 slugging percentage, a .956 OPS, 39 home runs, 27 stolen bases, and 111 runs scored. Now, Mike Trout, the guy, the seminal player in baseball, still the king of cards, not just in baseball. That $4 million card still looms over everything that was sold earlier this summer. His first 143 games, .314 batting average, .378 on base percentage, .548 slugging percentage, a .926 OPS, 29 bombs, 45 stolen bases, 119 runs. Each guy a little bit better here in some categories or a little bit better there. But boy, oh boy, when I saw that, that is pretty striking. How familiar, how identical almost. Those are almost mirror images, those stat lines. So my question to you, Doug, is this, as someone with much more knowledge in this hobby and experience, is there any chance that with an extended postseason run here, that we are going to start to have the conversation, is Fernando Tatis Jr. that next superstar that for years and years is going to be the talk of the hobby, the guy you want, no matter what year you get? If you get this guy's card in 10 years, it's still going to be something that you covet, as you know, as much as maybe some rookie cards from that year. Just getting a Tatis. What is his ceiling, I guess?
You know, I mean, I think it's going to take a couple years to catch up to that hobby lore that Trout has. I mean, it's actually pretty astounding, and that's what I was just looking at right now. I said, you know what, I'm going to compare their two Topps flagship rookie cards, right? So a recent sale of a Mike Trout 2011 update, which is the one to have, you know, no autograph, right, just the rookie card, $3,200 for a PSA 10, right? A recent sale of a Tatis PSA 10 from 2019, $175.
Wow.
So, you know, you could basically have 20 or so, you know, Tatis to one Trout. So I think right there it says it's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
You know, granted, the pop report on the Tatis is probably higher than the Trout, but I mean, wow. I mean, you're talking about a $3,200 card compared to a $175 card. There's a really, really big gap there. So I think no doubt it should be something that everybody's trying to achieve, is grab one of those cards, grab a couple of the parallels maybe. I think it's going to take a couple years for collectors to put him in the same category as Trout, or even put him 1 and 2, right? Trout 1, Tatis 2. But I think the interesting thing is, let's just say he defies the odds and gets that championship this year. Trout hasn't even won a playoff game.
Right.
You know, how does that balance and swing collectors? And I think Trout is I don't want to necessarily say the old man game, but the people that have been collecting the last 10 years have Trout. There's a lot of new collectors coming in. They're probably not buying Trout. They're probably heading towards the Tatises of the world. So it's almost like new generation versus old generation. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'd like to see them move on. Like I said, I don't think they're going to beat the Dodgers. But the guy's absolutely electric. I think he has a little bit more swagger to his appearance that appears more to the youth. And I think that's what baseball wants. I think baseball was kind of like, they didn't want the Cardinals in as much as they wanted the Padres, because the baseball wants to appeal to the younger fans. And I think this guy is going to be, carrying the torch for the younger generation of collectors.
Yeah, I think that is the one thing, if you are going to go on the side of, I think Tatis has the potential to be the next Trout, if not even beyond that, is the one thing he's got over Trout is the personality, the swag. He's got that. He's instantly memorable. Like I said, that whatever happens the rest of the way for the Padres, they have their iconic playoff moment with that bat toss, and that's one that's going to live in Padres history forever. And MLB is going to milk it all off season. When they have commercials for the 2021 season, you're going to see that bat flip. It's going to be the lasting image of that player. And I think that as fantastic as Trout is, that personality has always kind of been the one thing holding him back from true superstardom that goes beyond the game of baseball. Tatis, I think, has that potential to go beyond the game of baseball. It's
tricky, though, because I think, if you were to ask Madison Bumgarner, he's picking Trout, because Trout respects the game.
Sure.
And I think you have that amongst some collectors, and you have that among some baseball purists, where I think maybe you're going to run into that with Tatis, where, you know what, I hate him. He just rubbed, he hit a home run off my favorite pitcher, and he threw his bat.
Yeah.
But it's weird that baseball still upholds these rules compared to all the other sports that, look at the celebrations you got in football now. Look at what, basketball players are doing. But baseball, it's like sometimes it's like you feel like you don't want your player to have too much fun. I mean, I feel like Bryce Harper's values was hurt because of his swagger. I mean, it was Harper and Trout kind of trying to be the next big thing for baseball in early, 2010, 2011, 2012. And obviously Trout's kind of won that battle. But I feel like, a clown question, bro, and all this stuff that Harper did, it maybe felt like he was less collectible for that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the new generation of collectors that came in from sneaker flipping, that are buying Tatis cards, they're buying Zions, they're buying Joe Burrow cards, and then you got the Trout, which has been the guys that have been collecting for several years and buying up Trout. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it will be, and I think you're on to something where I think if you're seeing maybe recent trends where basketball collectors, once really the season mostly over, other than two teams, move on to football. Once football's over, what do you got next? You've got baseball. So maybe those guys who are newer to the hobby, as you mentioned, moving on from sport to sport, picking out that guy. Tatis is the guy that jumps out to you. And frankly, I read the stats at the beginning. If he keeps that up, then there's not really going to be any argument at a certain point. It's just going to be like, he's the guy. And he also plays a flashy position. I mean, center field also a position where there's a lot of fantastic plays that can be had there. And the defense has improved. So you're going to have maybe like a West Coast version of Jeter here.
You're right. I mean, the diving. I mean, we saw that a lot with Crawford, where you got that full-on extension dive, throwing from your back. You just don't get that in the outfield as much, right? Yeah, you can make a climb the wall, type thing. But I think the whole assist, portion of Tatis's game might make him on SportsCenter a little bit more than, let's say, a Trout makes a nice running catch.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week we talked about who's the next Juan Soto. And, the answer feels like it was a lot more obvious than we thought. Of course, it's the guy who's maybe the most exciting young player in all of baseball doing the types of things that justify that name. Well, it's going to be a fun second round of the postseason, the division series. If you're watching us or listening to us, it's already underway. So thanks for hanging out with us and listen to our predictions. And, of course, when those series are done, which they'll be done next week, which, again, feels crazy that we're just slamming through these playoffs. But we'll be talking about the championship series on our next episode. And, of course, recapping some of the biggest stories, some of the biggest players, the players who maybe saw their value jump in the division series. But until then, make sure to subscribe to us here on Mojobreak Media if you're watching us on YouTube. And, of course, subscribe to us, Mojobreak Card Shop, for your personal breaks. And, of course, our main feed, Mojobreak, for all your group breaks and much, much more. For Doug, I'm Cody. We will talk to you next week on the Mojobreak Dugout Session.